Hello, and a very warm welcome to Sewing Scenes with Deb. And this is part of a series of top 5, my top 5. The top 5 scissors, and there may be more cutting instruments, but I'm particularly going to talk about sewing scissors and a little bit about what they do. So very nice to see you, and I hope you're well. So today I'm going to talk about the scissors that I've got in my sewing room. So they're sewing scissors. Some are used for other purposes, but when I started delving into this and looking around a little bit, I was quite surprised by some of the background and some information. So the first one is the sewing shears. Now these are monsters. Now they're not like Click Goes the Shears Boys in Australia and New Zealand, the song that we sing for Waltzing Matilda. Click Go the Shear Boys, click, click, click. That's around special shears that are used for shearing sheep. These days they have electric shearing gear, and some people still do the manual shearing of the sheep. However, the shears that we use for sewing are different again. The ones I've got are, they're very hard to open. They're stiff, right? So I don't use them much. They're mainly used for in garments or projects that you need to cut long straight lines so that you make them nice and even. So those ones. I've also got these other ones that my dear auntie gave me. Now she used to do dressmaking for people and for brides and bridesmaids and debutante balls and various things, and she gave me her old shears. These are beautiful. Check them out. Aren't they gorgeous? So, and very long in the cutting area, so they're very good for cutting the long lengths of seams, and also for very strong and stiff fabric, like say denim or curtains, if you're cutting curtains and the very, very stiff and strong fabric. So there may be other uses for them. Carpet, perhaps. You may cut carpet up and very, very stiff things like that. I've personally never used them for those reasons, only for sewing garments. These are also my shears, my sewing shears, and these are the ergonomic ones. And so once again, they have the very long cutting space, very, very sharp blades, and it's ergonomically set up so that it doesn't hurt your wrist or your hand. These are Fiskars that I bought from somewhere, Spotlight, and I find them very, very good because I have wrist problems, probably too much knitting, and too much knitting and too much yoga. It'll do that to you. And so, yeah, very, very good for that purpose. So for protecting yourself a bit. So I love these. They're my favourites. The question I have for myself about my sewing shears or dressmaking shears is, do I have enough? Got those. They're awesome. I've got these. They're the originals from back in the day. And I got these. They're not the ergonomic. They're the normal ones. And I got another pair of those somewhere. Then I got these. Bought it on special. Then I bought these. They're El Cheapo. Then, of course, I've got those aunties. Then I've got those ones that are too stiff. Then I've got my ergonomic ones. Hello, do you think I've got enough scarf sewing shears? What? Okay, the next one is the pinking shears. So they're still shears, so they've got the longer blades. And these are pinking shears, if you haven't seen them before. They're, the blades make holes or sort of cut it in uphill, down dale, sort of like triangles on the edge. They're used to trim seam allowances. If you don't have an overlocker, or if you don't want to do zigzag on the edge, you can use them for seam allowances. Interesting, I'm just referring to my notes here. Pinking shears were designed in 1931 by Samuel Briskman from Brooklyn. However, it is unclear how they actually were given their name. Some historians claim they were given the name pinking due to the historical meaning of the word pink, which meant to pierce, stab, or make holes in. So that's very interesting. And then they were patented by Louise Austin in 1893. Sorry, that's wrong. The pinking shears design that was most well known was patented by Louise Austin in 1893. And then in 1934, Samuel Briskman patented a pinking shear design, a different design. And he was listed as the inventor. So a question is, do the pinking shears actually stop fraying? It will still fray a little bit, but it only frays along the little point of the triangle, and it stops down at the valley part. So that's the principle behind it. And what's another question we've got here? What's the downside of using pinking shears? Well, if you use pinking shears to cut across the bias on a diagonal or curved edge, each triangle will be on the straight of grain then, so which means the fabric will actually fray. So that's interesting. We probably didn't know that. Well, I didn't know that. And the other thing is, can you sharpen your pinking shears? This is an interesting point. And just one moment, please. I just got to get something. Good old aluminium foil, alfoil, silver paper. If you cut through the aluminium foil, it sharpens any scissors. And it certainly sharpens the pinking shears. It's kind of a quick fix, and when they don't feel smooth, so it's a way to just give them a quick little sharpen. It doesn't take away professional sharpening, but it just assists if they become a little bit dull. So interesting. The next one is the good old Duckbill scissors. Now, I have only had these a couple of years. They're amazing. They look like this. And when you cut with them, it only cuts on one side. So the history of these is, they're called Duckbill scissors. They used to be called stalk scissors. There used to be more like clamps used in midwifery and in the midwifery kit because they were used to stop the blood flow of the newborn umbilical cord. So they'd snip like that to clasp it off. And they also, there's some evidence that 3,000 to 4,000 years ago, there was some bronze blade, duckbill scissors type of instrument used in Egypt. And later in the 1700s and the early 1800s, the midwives used them for the birth of babies. And now they're used to grade for lots of different purposes. So you can grade your seam allowance. So when in your pattern it says now grade around the neck before you turn it under or something, use your duckbill scissors for that. They're used for trimming seams, and that would be especially good for making French seams. After you've done the first pass, the first seam, you need to trim the seam back, so you trim it back with your duckbill scissors. Well, you can use normal scissors, but it stops you from making a mistake and accidentally cutting the actual garment. They're really good for clipping curves. Yes, used to cut very, very close to the stitches. So if you're doing applique, really, really good for applique. In fact, it's one of their main uses is for cutting around the edge of applique, because it's got to be cut very, very close to the edge. So that's your main use of the duckbill scissors. How cool are they though? Okay, the next one, which is number 4, is embroidery scissors. Now they come in quite a few shapes and forms. This is the embroidery scissor to the pink set that I have. So the distinguishing property is that the blades come to a point. Sorry, trying to get it. So they're very sharp and they come to a point. You can see that. Very, very sharp. As the name suggests, that's important because they allow you to cut your thread really cleanly, and often these are used for embroidery, and at times they're even perforated, is it? Or jagged just on the edges so that it grips the thread to cut it. So that's the classic embroidery. These are like a duckbill embroidery scissor. So they're a bit of a combination of the previous scissor, and they're shaped like a duck. Aren't they too cute? But extremely sharp point, and it just looks like a duck opening up. Well, I think they originally were called the stalk because it's something to do with these were used also for the umbilical cord, and the stalk apparently opened up and out popped the baby out of its belly or something. I don't know. Some strange reason why we call this, why the stalks got to do with babies. But anyway, so they are the stalk embroidery scissors, which I use a lot for cutting into a collar, just right to get right into the corner of where the two lines of stitchings meet, to cut right in there. And sometimes, not very often, I've got a special tool for this, what I'm about to say, but just occasionally a buttonhole, if it hasn't quite opened up to the correct width, I can just snip like a couple of threads, because it's so precise. You don't need, you wouldn't use big scissors for that because you might cut through the actual stitching in the buttonhole, and that would ruin it. So the last one I've got is good old paper scissors. Now, I was told recently by one of my offspring, one of my children, well, now adult, that I drilled into their heads so much, don't you touch those dressmaking scissors, don't you touch them, which were these ones here. These were my dressmaking scissors when my children were babies or little, and no one has ever cut paper with these ever. They cost me a fortune. I remember them being so expensive at the time, and they've been sharpened professionally and everything. So the paper scissors, they are kept, they're just, they're kind of like kitchen scissors. So pretty versatile. I've just got some El Cheapo ones, and just keep them for your paper. But once again, to sharpen them, you can use your alfoil and cut through them. I do this with my kitchen. I've got separate kitchen scissors. I do this with the kitchen scissors every now and then, because you got to cut something in the kitchen, like the top of a plastic, I don't know, frozen peas or something, you know. And the scissors are blunt. I think, oh, get that alfoil out and just cut a few strips off, and it sharpens them again enough to be able to be useful again. So that's the paper scissors. Now, do I use these much in sewing? I sure do. These days, well, any days really, even in the days gone by, before PDF patterns, you know, you draft or drew around your original, and then you have to cut that original out of your paper. Sorry, then you had to cut your pattern out. Or if you didn't do that and you used your pattern and just cut straight into the pattern, lots of people did that. If your pattern had more than one size on it, you would draft out your size relevant pattern and then cut it. So we've always had to have paper scissors. And you know, you try cutting fabric with these, it's not going to work. Even just threads for when you're sewing, very, very hard to get that to do what you want it to do. And a hairdresser would say the same thing. You know, you've got to have special scissors for special occasions or special tasks. A hairdresser scissor is a whole nother conversation. But the paper scissors, I use these so much with cutting out my PDF patterns. Because once they're all stuck together, then you've got to cut around them. And that's thicker paper than I used to use. I used to use this paper, which I still do because I've got a lot of old patterns. You know, that's a bit lighter. But now with the PDF patterns, they're printed on printer paper, which is quite thick. So yeah, you need a good pair of paper scissors. So there you go. I've ended up with some streamers, very nice. And I've got all my scissors, and that's been a lot of fun to find out about, you know, the history of the pinking shears, where the Duckbill name came from, click go the shears, and of course the ergonomic shears. I guess my point being, you can't have too many scissors, right? And who else agrees with me that a good pair of scissors makes all the difference? And I've been told by a tradie that a tradie is only as good as their tools. And I would say the same with the tools of sewing or dressmaking, that you're only as good as your tools, and it all starts with scissors. So thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you again soon for another my top 5. And I'll just cut you out of it now. Cut.